Hi guys, so today's video, basically I'm going to have a little recap of all the things I've kind of learned and done with sprues over the last year. And basically the reason for that is a lot of new subscribers have turned up in the last few weeks, which is awesome. And by looking at YouTube's analytics, most of you guys have come here through sprue made videos. Where obviously I've made things like a little TIE fighter out of sprues, or maybe a video where I made an orc wizard tower, again from sprues, or maybe videos where I've made things like an orc stomper. And no surprises, guessing what this fella's made of? Yep, that's right, sprues. So yeah, obviously a lot of new people, a lot of new videos on sprues, and I'm going to show basically what I've sort of done to take these kind of things, which a lot of you guys have got just sort of sitting around gathering dust, and show you basically how I've made some of these videos or some of these items, and basically sort of the basic principles of what I've done. And obviously, as some of you guys know, my favourite thing that I've made from sprues is a sprue burger. Again, there's videos, separate videos on all these builds and loads more, obviously throughout my channel. And there's a playlist, obviously mainly to do with sprues, and it again shows you how to make all these things. But as I've been getting a lot of sort of similar questions about how I make these kind of builds, and I guess more importantly, how I get my sprue goo, the very important stuff this, because this is what I use to make things like panels, or wall decorations, or even I can cast things like tyres, and a whole variety of other stuff. So yeah, so basically this video is going to be like a little recap of basically my last year's experience of messing about with sprues, messing about with the sprue goo, and yeah, and the basics of what I kind of do with all them bits and pieces. Okay guys, let's get into it. So as well as obviously all the new subscribers coming here for sprue videos, I know a lot of you regular subscribers that have been here for quite some time, obviously you too came here for sprue videos, and as you can see, sort of the top videos that are on my channel, well, most of them are all about sprues. So it's another good reason to make this video. As I say, it's like a recap of all the things I do and how I make things. And it all starts, well, with these lovely things. Sprues, and yeah, more sprues. Big ones, little ones, blue ones, all kinds of ones. And obviously not forgetting good old clippers to obviously cut the sprues. This is my third pair of clippers I've been on, and they've lasted quite a while. So as you can see, the first thing I normally do is I cut out the centre bit. So cutting around all the edges, and then I've got obviously the outer edge and an inner edge. So the outer edge I like to keep and cut up and use as obviously long lengths. And the reason for this is most of the builds I do have a framework inside. So that's what all the long lengths are for. And obviously all these inside bits I cut up into, well, nibbly knobbly bits, and they're the bits that I turn into sprue glue later on. So pretty much every big build I've ever made, as in all these ones you can see here, these all have a sort of like a boxwork frame inside, and obviously this one you can still see some of the framework that's inside, and basically this is those long sprues just sort of glued together to say make boxes and frames and all that kind of stuff. This one's got a similar sort of framework in it, but this one's actually curved, because obviously his body is curved, obviously his head's fallen off, but yes, even in a sprue burger there's a framework, and obviously the frames are pretty easy to make, but I would say pretty crucial to basically any sort of large build that you want to make. So yeah, you get obviously all the little the lengths of sprue you got, and it is a case of gluing them together. So generally into sort of a box shape works really well. Obviously the size, length and shape and all that kind of thing of the box you're going to make depends on what it is you're actually sort of building. So basically whenever I try and build something, I kind of break it down into what it looks like inside. So it's almost a kind of a sort of a skeleton sort of thing you're kind of building on the inside. So it might be made up of just sort of one box, or it could be several boxes. Basically, whatever you do, you want to build it so it's nice and strong and firm. And once it is all glued together, then obviously you can cover it in, well, sprue panels. So I've got smooth panels, I've got like corrugated looking panels, and kind of, well, any kind of textured panels you may want to make. So now it's time to show you how obviously you can make all these kind of panels. So we start by taking our box of nibbly knobbly bits, like this pile here. Then I can have a go at making this into the ooey gooey sprue stuff, which I shorten and just called sprue goo. So to make this, obviously the main ingredient is this, acetone. Can be found in any kind of like nail polish really, but you can buy acetone as just acetone and not nail polish. But if you do get nail polish, make sure it does have acetone in it, as some don't. So I like to fill whatever jar I have up to about halfway,
And then, yeah, it's just a case of getting all these nibbly knobbly bits and putting them in. So when I cut these nibbly knobbly bits up, basically I cut them up bearing in mind the size of the opening, just to make sure, obviously, I can get them in it. And then, yeah, fit it to right to the top, put the lid back on, and then basically just put this to one side and leave it. And it kind of takes at least around 7-8 hours for it to fully dissolve. I generally leave it overnight, and then when you do, it comes out like this. Don't worry about the colour of the acetone, it's perfectly fine. So yeah, grey sprues make it go green. If you put any blue or red sprues in, then it kind of goes a dirty brown colour. So yeah, once it's like this, it's then ready to use. And the great thing about this is, it will last in this jar, well, almost indefinitely. I think the longest I've had some in the jar for and not used it is about 7 weeks. So as long as the acetone's above the sprue, then yeah, it works fine. And then get a spoon that you don't mind using for this kind of thing, because obviously you don't want to use a good spoon. And then to make the flat panels, which is the main sort of thing I use to sort of build anything really, you get some of the sprue goo, put it on a greaseproof tin or paper, whichever you want to use, and then yeah, flatten it out and use a roller. And the rollers I use have like these coloured bands at the end, which basically means you can roll it out whatever thickness those bands are. Typically I roll them out sort of 1 to 2 millimeters thick, just because they're nice and thin. They dry a lot quicker because obviously it's thinner. But again, these need to be left for around about 8 hours or so for the acetone to sort of fully evaporate and for the sprue basically to turn back into being sort of solid plastic. So the greaseproof paper just peels away really nicely because obviously it doesn't stick to anything. And there you go, you're left with a nice thin flat panel basically. And yeah, so if you don't touch them when you roll them out, they will come out nice and smooth. So one question I do get asked a lot about these panels that I make, can you use the green stuff rollers to obviously roll out on them and to make the impression? And well, the simple answer is yes, you can. So again, similar sort of thing as what we've just done. You want to get the sprue goo, put it on your greaseproof sort of tin, paper or whatever it is you're using. Get some more greaseproof paper on top, roll it out. Again, same sort of fashion that we've done before. But what you want to do this time is obviously not leave it 7-8 hours because obviously then it'll go to sort of being firm plastic. But you basically want to leave it for around about an hour. Don't leave it any less because say this sprue goo really is sticky stuff. So this is about an hour later. It's still obviously soft because it's not had time to fully cure. But you can now get the roller and pushing down firmly. Just obviously roll out how you would normally, well, using the green stuff rollers basically. So yeah, firm pressure, pushing down, and there you go. It leaves the texture in it. Obviously some areas it might sort of pull it up a little bit, that's fine, you can just push them down. And now it is a case of leaving this now for the other sort of like 7-8 hours, again, just so it fully hardens. And one of the things I love about making these thin panels is they can just be cut with a normal pair of scissors. So yeah, nice and easy because they are thin, and basically you can almost treat this like it is the plastic card. So yeah, trim away as needed, and then obviously get on to painting it. And I think the end result is, well, pretty awesome. There's one cheap, very inexpensive panel made from sort of wasted or unwanted sprues. And yeah, you can now fix this to any sort of build you've made. The other question I'm often asked is, can you put goo into molds, as in like these sort of silicone molds? And these ones I've made, but also you can buy sort of molds. And again, the answer is yes. Yeah, the great thing is the acetone that we obviously use doesn't seem to deform or affect or do anything to the silicone molds. So not only does it work, but obviously you can keep reusing these molds as much and as many times as you want. The only thing I will say is though, the molds do have to be quite simple and not too complex, because obviously as gooey and ooey as this sprue stuff is, it doesn't really sink into all like the nooks and crevices that well. As you can see, obviously when you use these simple molds, it is a case of sort of pushing it around, manipulating it and getting it in position. Whereas I say, if you had like a complex mold, you wouldn't be able to apply enough force to basically push it in to where it needs to go, basically. So for this other bit, I kind of use this as a sort of like a panel. So I push it around as much as I can, and then I get like a roller. In this case, I'm using the green stuff tube, and it'll just push it out, and it flattens it out to where it needs to go. One thing I will say about some molds though, is obviously because the goo kind of gets affected by gravity quite a lot, and as you can see, this is about an hour later, and it's obviously started to sink. So it is a case of you have to keep going back every now and then, just to sort of re-push the bits up the side. Giving it a couple of hours, then it will eventually stay in position. But say, definitely for the first hour or so, gravity isn't its friend, and will just pull it down. And again, giving it the good old 8 hours, this is kind of a rough number that I kind of use all the time. But again, generally I leave things overnight. and then it's a case of peeling the silicone mold off. Again, it comes off nice and clean, it doesn't stick to it in any way, and there you go. So what I generally do is pull this off, but then I leave it again for another sort of half hour or so, just so it does fully harden. And again, good old scissors, you can just cut this as required, and the wheel also just pops out nice and effortlessly from the silicone rubber mold. And yeah, there we go, one simple effective tyre. Then you can just slap some paint on it and voila, instant sort of corrugated looking panel, and yeah, a pretty half decent looking tyre. Again, a lot of these things that I build are generally for like orcs and nurgles, so any imperfections don't look too bad. But if you really wanted to, you could fill in any gaps with, well, basically sprue goo. So another question I'm quite often asked about the sprue goo and the acetone is, what do I do once I've used the acetone, and how do I dispose of it? Well, the simple answer is I don't dispose of it, because obviously I keep using it. It doesn't really matter the fact that it's gone a bit cloudy and dirty. So what I generally do is I use the sprue goo. Once I've used it, I keep topping it up with more sprues. When the level of the acetone starts to go down, I just keep topping that up with more acetone. So basically this one jar I will now use for months and months and months, and basically I just keep topping it up with either sprues or acetone. And as I said before, this can be left in a cupboard, well, almost indefinitely. So it's not like you have to use it all up in one go. The other question I often get asked about this is, does it obviously leave a smell in the air, obviously of acetone? And again, the answer to that is no. It's basically a case of as soon as the air hits the acetone, or acetone hits the air, it evaporates almost instantly. So there is no smell of this in the air when I'm working on it. Obviously when you first open the jar, you can get a little whiff of it, but then it soon sort of goes. Plus I do work in a well ventilated area, and obviously I would suggest you do too. So I am currently working on a rather large build now, and it's this towel manta. And as you can see, it is quite a beast, and the size of this is, well, basically massive. So if I was to make this the same way I've made all the other things, which is obviously basically a frame and then using the thin sprue sort of plastic card, I think it'd have problems because it'd be so big it will buckle and bend, and it's just not going to be strong enough. So I'm doing something a little bit different this time, and I'm making panels like this. So as you can see, it's a lot thicker, a lot stronger, and should be able to cope with obviously building it to the size I'm going to build it. And to make this, it was basically just getting a normal sprue like this one, and then basically filling in all the gaps with some sprue goo, and then obviously letting it dry, and then it comes out like this. So say it's nice and thick, it's around about 4mm, maybe 5mm thick, and certainly a lot stronger. So this again will be glued together to make sort of panels and a framework of some description. And I say this will be a lot stronger than just using the old sprue panels. Some of them come out obviously with a few blemishes and bits and pieces, but that doesn't matter because basically these are going to be the inside of my new build, which I say is going to be absolutely massive. I will be doing some live streaming of me building this, as well as updating daily on my Patreon page with the progress. So if you want to keep up to date on how it's come along, become a patron. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed that and you found that informative. If you want to help out the channel, become a patron like these guys here. There's a link obviously coming up in a second, there's a link down in the description on how to become a patron. And I say support the channel. And obviously thank you to all these sponsors down here who again help support the channel. If you are new here and you like what I do, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell as I do produce videos every week. And if you have any questions about sprues, sprue goo, or basically anything I make on this channel, leave them down below. As I'd like to know what you think about what I make and what I do. And say any questions at all, I will certainly answer them. Even if you just want to say hi, put hi in the chat and I'll say hi back. There's a couple more videos on my channel, give these a little click, see more of what I do. Don't forget, subscribe here, Patreon there. Okay guys, that's it. Bye for now.